On a Tuesday morning in Amsterdam, a driver picks up his phone and it will not let him work. His account is switched off. The reason he is given is suspected fraud. So he asks the obvious question: who decided that? The company tells him a person did. 4 years later, a court took a very close look at what that person actually did. Here is the strange part. Open almost any bank's AI policy and one phrase does the heavy lifting: human in the loop. Now search the EU AI Act for it. 0 hits. Search the GDPR. 0 hits. The phrase everybody uses to prove compliance appears in neither law. So 3 things by the end. What the law asks instead. The 4 tests that decide whether your human review counts for anything. And the 3 rules teams put around an automated decision. So, first principles. Where does the phrase come from? Not from banking and not from data protection. It comes from the argument about autonomous weapons. Human Rights Watch set out the 3 categories in a report on killer robots in 2012. In the loop, on the loop, out of the loop. It reached European AI policy 7 years later through ethics guidelines that say on their own opening pages that they are not binding. It was never a legal test. What the law actually asks is narrower and harder. Article 22 of the GDPR gives you the right not to be subject to a decision based solely on automated processing, where that decision has legal effects on you or affects you in a similarly significant way. One word carries the whole thing: solely. And the safeguard that follows from it, the right to obtain human intervention, appears exactly once in the entire regulation. One sentence in Article 22, Paragraph 3. Here is what a smart, busy banker assumes at this point. Fine, we put a person on the end of it. The reviewer sees the score, clicks approve, so it is not solely automated, and Article 22 is somebody else's problem. The regulator's own guidance closed that door in 2018. You cannot escape Article 22 by fabricating human involvement. If somebody routinely applies an automatically generated profile without any actual influence on the result, the decision is still solely automated. To count, the oversight has to be meaningful rather than a token gesture, carried out by somebody with the authority and the competence to change the decision. Which brings us back to Amsterdam. On the 4th of April 2023, the Court of Appeal there handed down 3 judgments, 2 against Uber and 1 against Ola. The company said humans had reviewed every deactivation, a team sitting in Krakow. The court worked through what those reviewers were shown and what they actually did, and then wrote this: the evidence in no way demonstrates that the act was much more than a merely symbolic one, and so actual human intervention had not been sufficiently demonstrated. But the most useful line in that judgment is the one nobody quotes. 4 drivers brought the case. For 3 of them, the court found no genuine human intervention, so their deactivations counted as decisions based solely on automated processing. For the 4th, it found the opposite, because a documented personal conversation had actually taken place before he was cut off. Same company, same system, one conversation, and the legal character of the decision changes. So put a real person there, with real authority. Are you safe? Not automatically. And this is the failure the AI Act names out loud. It calls it automation bias. In the classic flight simulation study by Skitka, Mosier, and Burdick, when the automated aid stayed quiet, people missed 41% of the events they were supposed to catch. People flying with no aid at all missed 3%. And later work found the same pattern in novices and experts alike, and that training does not fix it. One honest caveat: that same study found the group with the aid still did better overall. Automation does not make people worse. It makes one kind of error invisible. So what makes oversight real? 4 things, straight out of the legal texts. Authority: the reviewer can decide not to use the output at all, or disregard, override, or reverse it. Information: they can see why the system produced this result for this person. Competence: they understand the factors that drove it. And support: the AI Act says deployers must assign oversight to people with the necessary competence, training, and authority, as well as the necessary support. That last phrase is the one everybody drops. Support means time, budget, and somewhere to escalate to. None of this is theoretical for a bank. Because your supervisor has written it down already. The ECB's guide to internal models says everybody performing an override should have an in-depth understanding of the risk factors that drove the number before they touched it. That is a supervisory expectation, not law. But Europe's markets regulator put the stake in one sentence. Firms' decisions remain the responsibility of management bodies, irrespective of whether those decisions are taken by people or AI-based tools. Get this wrong, and the finding lands on your desk, not the models. Now the timing, and it runs backwards to the order most teams assume. Most teams are waiting for the AI Act, its human oversight article, Article 14, and the deployer duty in Article 26 were both pushed back by the digital omnibus. For credit scoring, they apply from December 2027. Before that, the second Consumer Credit Directive gives consumers a right to human intervention on an automated creditworthiness assessment from November 2026. And before both, Article 22 of the GDPR has been enforced since 2018. The rule everybody is waiting for is 16 months away. The one that already binds you is 8 years old. So, has a bank ever been punished for a review that turned out to be a rubber stamp? As of August 2026, we could find no public enforcement action anywhere on that ground. Be careful what you read into that, because supervisory findings are not published. But the precedent is not missing, it is just somewhere else. Italy's Data Protection Authority fined a food delivery platform €5 million and ordered it to have algorithmic decisions verified by adequately trained operators. Hamburg's authority fined a financial services firm for rejecting credit card applications with no human involved at all. So, 3 rules teams put around an automated decision. 1. Write down what the reviewer is allowed to change, then check it happens. If nothing is ever overridden, that is not proof the model is right. It is a question worth asking. 2. Give the reviewer the reason, not just the score. If they cannot see why this person, they have nothing to disagree with. 3. Record the human step as evidence. Who, when, what they saw, what they decided. That record is the only thing that still exists when somebody asks 4 years later. So rewind to Amsterdam one last time. 3 drivers won their point because the court could not find a human being who had really made the decision. The 4th lost his, and the reason he lost it is the whole lesson. With him, somebody actually had a conversation first and wrote it down. That is the test, not whether a human was in the loop, whether that human could have said no and would have known why. The free RegAI brief newsletter goes out to risk, compliance, model governance, and audit people working on exactly this. Link below.